My parents said my cousin was a safer bet. Not in those exact words, but that's what they meant. I'd spent 6 months crafting an impeccable business plan, studying the market, and validating an innovative digital security idea for small businesses. I knew execution would be tough, but the opportunity was real. All I needed was a push, an initial loan, nothing more. I walked into the living room with my presentation printed out, color-coded spreadsheets in hand, heart pounding like crazy. My dad barely glanced at the papers. My mom didn't even put down her phone. "You want to start a company by yourself?" my dad asked, as if I'd said I wanted to be a magician in Vegas. "Yes, a digital security startup," I said. "Small at first, but with potential to scale. I already have 2 clients in my sights." My dad let out a sigh heavy with disappointment. "Caleb, you're a good kid, but this," he held up the papers, "is high risk. You've never managed anything. You've never led a team. This is real money. It's not a game. I'm not asking for a gift, Dad. It's a loan with interest. I'll pay it back." "You just don't have the profile," he said. "Not yet. Maybe in the future." My mom tried to soften the blow. "You're too technical, son. Too introspective. The business world demands presence, instinct, charisma. Look at Brandon." "Ah, yes, Brandon, my cousin, the family star. A commercial-worthy smile, an MBA in marketing, 1,000 LinkedIn followers with posts about mindset. He wanted to open a premium experiences agency, whatever that meant. His plan involved yachts, spiritual retreats, and, of course, influencers. I wanted to protect data for small businesses. Guess who got the investment? Brandon. And it wasn't a small amount. My parents, aunts, uncles, and even grandparents put money in. They called it a project that looked like the future. What hurt most was hearing my dad tell my uncle, "Brandon has the soul of an entrepreneur." "Caleb, I don't know. He's too cerebral. He lacks instinct." Instinct? That word hammered in my head for weeks. I locked myself in my room for 2 days, on the verge of deleting everything. But then I started to move. No plan, no money, just rage in my chest and a desire to prove them wrong. If I didn't have instinct, all I had left was execution. I worked in the early hours because, during the day, I was trapped in a mediocre job at a consulting firm that treated me like a glorified data entry clerk. I coded until my eyes burned. I traded sleep for lines of code. My office was a cramped corner of my room with a creaky chair and a wobbly table, but it was mine. No one could say it wasn't. Meanwhile, Brandon posted stories toasting with champagne, promising to revolutionize luxury for the new generation. My parents commented on everything with fire emojis and phrases like, "Proud is an understatement." I was just the son who was too technical to dream big, the one nobody believed could succeed. My parents were always good at building an image of a perfect family. The kind who go to charity galas, take smiling photos in front of banners with company logos and motivational quotes. That was the standard. They had money, connections, prestige in the neighborhood. I was the quiet son, the one who never brought home sports trophies, who didn't talk much at school meetings, but who always got good grades. That wasn't a source of pride, it was the bare minimum expected. Since childhood, I felt an invisible hierarchy in the family. Natural leaders were celebrated, good kids were ignored. Brandon was the first type, I was clearly the second. At 14, I was dismantling old computers to see how they worked. At 16, I programmed a simple security system to protect the school's files after a classmate hacked a report card. I was called to the principal's office, expecting punishment. Instead, the principal said, "You should be creating solutions for companies." Years later, that's exactly what I wanted to do. Monitoring and containment software for data breaches, for small businesses who couldn't afford big solutions but lived exposed to attacks. I saw real pain, a huge market, and I had the technical knowledge. What I lacked was initial capital. I naively thought my parents would understand, that because they knew me, they'd see how serious I was. But no, they looked at me like I'd gotten the idea from a conspiracy video. Meanwhile, Brandon released videos about the power of success vibration and the magnetism of abundance. My dad shared one in the family group chat with the caption, "This kid is going to go far." Brandon's project was a fiasco from the start. His so-called premium agency launched with a pretty website and zero structure. It promised yacht retreats but didn't have a license to operate. It promised exclusive experiences but used stock photos. One influencer exposed him in a video, and everything crashed, denied refunds, lawsuit threats, mass deleted comments. My parents called it a learning phase. For me, there was never room for error. I kept developing my system without investment, using an old laptop that froze if I opened more than 3 tabs. I cut all expenses, stopped going out, stopped ordering food, even sold my bicycle. My world became a cycle: wake up, work at the firm, come home, code, sleep late, repeat. My face was dark circles and caffeine, and no one noticed. Brandon, meanwhile, vanished from social media after the scandal, then reappeared with a new project: performance coaching. I swear he did. He went from luxury entrepreneur to mindset mentor in 2 months. My parents were the first to repost, saying, "Reinvention is the secret of winners." I bit my tongue to keep from laughing. 2 months later, I landed my first real client, a small law firm hit by a ransomware attack. I used my system to recover part of their data and, with manual adjustments, prevented it from happening again. The payment was small, but it was the first cent I earned from something I created. I called my mom, a flicker of pride in my voice. She responded with a dry, "That's nice," then asked if I'd heard Brandon's new podcast. "He's having so much success. He even mentioned you. Can you believe it?" I said no and hung up. I locked myself in the bathroom, stared at the mirror, and asked for the 1,000th time, what more did I have to do to be seen? Not adored, not praised, just seen. I started having secret anxiety attacks. I'd wake up at night, heart racing, imagining my system failing, no one else signing on, the money running out before takeoff. I didn't want anyone to know, especially my parents. Part of me believed if they knew I was struggling, they'd use it as proof they were right all along. I clung to every small victory, a recommendation, a positive comment, a client who renewed. It was like swimming against the current with my arms tied. Every inch gain tasted of survival. I did it all in silence, and still, nothing from my family. Slowly, I saved enough to leave that cramped room. I rented a small office on the second floor of a rundown commercial building. The walls had mold, the floor creaked, the air conditioner spat hot air. But I was ecstatic. I brought my old table, a cheap router, hung a cracked whiteboard, and wrote in big letters, "The solution starts here." I hired 2 freelancers, Cassie, a college classmate who knew systems architecture, and Nora, a designer I met on a tech forum who agreed to help for future equity. None of us earned much, barely enough for breakfast. But there was an energy my parents would never understand, the kind you feel when every inch carries sweat, exhaustion, and persistence in its DNA. Our first big contract came from a network of dental clinics needing to protect patient data. Our presentation was simple, direct, no fireworks, but we solved their problem. They signed a 6-month contract on the spot. I left that meeting, sat on the curb with a goofy smile, trembling with adrenaline. I called my sister, Rachel, and said, "We closed it." They trusted me. She screamed on the other end, "I knew it. I always knew it, Caleb. You're a genius." She was the only one. Rachel was always on my side. Even as kids, when I was the weird one and Brandon was the champion, she'd let me watch movies with her. She defended me when they mocked my worn-out clothes, said one day the world would see me as she did. She'd been belittled by our parents too, in a different way. She chose to be a literature professor instead of studying law like they wanted. My dad said she'd wasted her talent, my mom called her career a hobby. That's probably why we understood each other without needing words. When I told her I'd rented the office, she showed up with a coffee maker and a poster that read, "Build in silence. Conquer out loud." We stuck it to the wall with electrical tape. It became the company's mantra. My parents kept ignoring me, no questions, no calls, no messages. But they kept investing time, money, and pride in Brandon, now selling high-performance emotional online courses and collaborating with fitness influencers. Then I saw a video of him using my story, literally my story. He said he'd started from scratch with a system created in a tiny room, that no one believed in him, that he almost went bankrupt, yet pushed forward. My jaw dropped. He was describing my journey as if it were his. He used phrases I'd said in an interview months earlier, but with the intonation of a stage salesman. My parents commented, "You're an example of resilience. The whole family is inspired by you." I broke a glass when I read that. In the company's 3rd year, we finally had positive cash flow. We closed a contract with a fast-growing fintech company needing a robust anti-fraud system. It was the first time we got a sum that let us breathe. We renovated the office, hired a full-time team, bought our own server. That's when my parents reappeared. It started with a call out of the blue. My mom, in her sweet voice, said, "I saw your company was mentioned in a business magazine. How wonderful, son. We knew you'd make it far." As if they'd supported me in silence all along. As if they hadn't mocked my idea when I asked for help. I replied with a dry, "Thanks," but the discomfort grew. The next month, I was invited to a cybersecurity roundtable at a big city business event, entrepreneurs, press, politicians. I didn't know my parents would be there too. I arrived at the hall and saw them at the back, talking to investors. As I got closer, I heard my dad say, "Caleb always had talent. We encouraged him not to give up, even when things seemed tough." I stood there, watching. My mom added, "It was a family effort. Every achievement of his carries a piece of what we built together." Built together? That was it. They were acting like they'd helped, like they were behind it, like my company was part of their legacy. On the panel, I spoke briefly about my journey, the tough start, the support of friends, the lack of external investment. I looked at them when I said, "It all started with a no, but sometimes a no is the push you need to do it your own way." My mom smiled, as if I'd meant their rejection was wise, part of a plan. After the event, the subtle moves began. My dad posted on Facebook, "Proud of my son and our company, born with solid family principles." A photo of our office building's front with the caption, "A visit to our headquarters. This is growth." Vague but calculated messages. The more you repeat a story, the easier it becomes true. They weren't celebrating, they were rewriting, repositioning, infiltrating my success. I told Rachel, "They're trying to take ownership of something that was never theirs." She replied, "The worst part is, deep down, they believe it. They lie to themselves so much they can't tell truth from convenience." Cassie, my partner, was furious. She said it could hurt our reputation, make it look like nepotism when it wasn't. Nothing was inherited. The company was born from the ground up, from emotional bankruptcy, from their contempt. I asked them to stop, sent polite messages, said their posts confused our partners, asked them to leave the company out of it. My mom replied with a heart emoji. My dad ignored me. The next month, a journalist emailed me for an interview about family businesses and generational succession. Guess who gave him my contact? My dad. I replied clearly, "My company is not a family business. I got no family investment. I started alone with my effort and friends' support. Any other narrative isn't true." The journalist thanked me, said he'd adjust the focus, but the article came out with the headline, "From Father to Son, How Family Values Shaped a Successful Startup." My name, my face, and quotes I never said. My head was boiling. I called the newsroom, demanded a correction. The reporter said my dad had confirmed the details, that they understood he was a partner. Partner? I stared at the email, unable to react. My dad was presenting himself as a partner in Bantech without investing a cent, tightening a screw, or writing a line of code. He was occupying spaces that weren't his, erasing me from my own story. I called Cassie and Nora for an urgent meeting, showed them screenshots, emails, posts. Cassie slammed her fist on the table. "This isn't just ego, it's image theft. It affects the brand. We could lose clients who think we're some spoiled heirs company." Nora agreed, saying if the family business narrative took hold, we'd be devoured by the idea that only those born with everything can grow. Rachel showed up at the office that night with 2 pizzas and a warning. "Get ready. They'll play dirty. They feel they've lost control of the narrative and will try to take it back." She was right. The next weekend was my grandmother's birthday. I hesitated to go, but she asked me to come, saying she just wanted to see me. I went, intending not to talk about work, just to be there. But as I walked in, I saw my dad talking to guests. "And now that Bantech is expanding, we're thinking of taking it abroad. Caleb's aligned with our directives. We just need to adjust governance." I stared in silence, like I'd been punched. He wasn't just positioning himself as part of the company, he was talking like the CEO, like my company was an extension of his legacy, a shared conquest. My mom approached, didn't even say hello, and said, "You should be more grateful. We're just trying to help your image. You seem ungrateful when you erase us from this." I swallowed hard. "What do you mean? You think you have the right to say that?" "We raised you," my dad interrupted, appearing behind her. "Your work ethic, your discipline, that came from us. That's an investment, whether you admit it or not." My head throbbed, veins pulsing. I needed to leave. But before turning, I looked him in the eyes. "Don't confuse the trauma you caused with structure. You didn't shape me. You forced me to be alone. That's not to your credit." I left, not caring if they called me ungrateful. 2 days later, I got an Instagram notification. My mom tagged Bantech's account in a post, a screenshot of our website with our logo. The caption, "Our greatest pride. Seeing our values flourish in the form of a company. Ethics and technology are life's greatest gifts. We built this together with love, effort, and a vision for the future. We built this together." My hands shook. I knew she was provoking me, but what hit hardest was the coldness of distorting reality so publicly, knowing no one outside our circle would know the truth. That day, a former colleague from the consulting firm messaged me. "Wow, congrats. I didn't know your family invested from the start. What a beautiful story, Caleb." She sent a link to a business group article pushing the same family startup narrative, supportive parents, generational continuity. My name was there, and so were theirs. The lie was spreading. I sat in my office chair, staring at the floor, head spinning. It felt like I was losing something I'd built so carefully. The worst part was I couldn't prove it. They weren't blatantly lying, just distorting with half-truths, vague phrases that sounded like compliments but were loaded with appropriation. Rachel came that afternoon, looked me in the eyes, and said, "They want your story because theirs sank. Brandon turned out badly. Their entrepreneurial family image is crumbling, and now they want to latch onto you to survive the fall. So what do I do? Let them?" She paused. "You can destroy it with one speech, but it has to be at the right moment, when everyone's watching." My mouth went dry. I knew the moment she meant, and it made it harder because I never wanted to fight or expose anyone. I just wanted them to see the truth, acknowledge it, or at least stay out of it. But they couldn't stay out of anything that shined. And now I was the thing shining. That moment was the local business chamber's annual event, where I'd receive an innovation award. Press, investors, partners, everyone my parents wanted to impress, would be there. When the announcement went public, my mom shared it, "We're so proud of our achievement." The event director called days before, saying, "Your dad mentioned he'd like to say a few words on stage with you. Can we include that?" I froze, took a deep breath, and said calmly, "No. This achievement belongs to the team and the company, nothing more." She hesitated but agreed. I knew it would be the point of no return. The night of the event, I wore my best suit, not to impress, but because I knew what was coming. The hotel ballroom was packed, bright lights, photographers, entrepreneurs shaking hands like every handshake was worth stock. I kept a rehearsed smile, but my breath caught in my stomach. My parents arrived 15 minutes before the ceremony. My mom wore a blue dress that caught eyes from a distance. My dad wore his brown blazer, reserved for occasions to look respectable. They walked among guests like they were the hosts, greeting, smiling, patting backs of people they barely knew. "Caleb," my mom exclaimed, rushing toward me with open arms. "What pride, my love. You can't imagine how thrilled we are." She hugged me, posed for a photo by the Bantech sign. "Let's take one with your dad too," she said. "It's a family moment, isn't it?" My response was firm. "No, Mom, this isn't about you." Her smile wavered but snapped back like nothing happened. I went on stage to receive the award. The presenter read a summary of Bantech's journey, innovation, impact, ethics in data use. They handed me the trophy and the microphone. This was the moment. I held the award, looked at the audience. My parents sat in the third row, center, with frozen smiles, confident gazes. They thought I'd thank them, validate their charade in front of everyone. Then I spoke. 3 years ago, this company started with a no you never forget. A no from those you expect support from, a no that says you don't have the profile, the instinct, that it's not worth the risk. My mom's eyes blinked rapidly. My dad crossed his arms. I continued. But sometimes a no becomes your engine. When they push you out of your comfort zone without a safety net, you either fall or fly. I chose to fly because, even without structure, investment, or applause, I knew the idea was good. And more than that, I knew I was good. Some in the audience nodded, others held their breath. I'm not going to pretend this journey was pretty. I was scared. I was angry. I wanted to give up. But we built something based on truth, with sweat, sleepless nights, cold coffee, and headphones to silence the world. None of this was inherited. Nothing came ready-made. And above all, no one, absolutely no one, has the right to take credit for what they didn't help build. The room fell silent, a dense silence filled with meaning. This award isn't just mine. It belongs to Cassie, to Nora, to Rachel, and to everyone who believed when there was no reason to believe. But above all, it's a reminder, not all legacies come from blood. Sometimes they come from the decision to break from it. Applause followed, some timid, some genuine. My parents were frozen. My mom's face was red, my dad's teeth were clenched. I stepped off the stage, didn't look at them, and went straight to Rachel. She was standing, tears in her eyes, and hugged me tightly. "That was it," she whispered. "That was exactly it." My dad caught up with me in a side hallway, away from the ballroom, steps firm, jaw tense. He pointed a finger in my face. "What was that, Caleb? Do you know what you just did?" I stood still, silent, just looking at him. That seemed to infuriate him more. "You think it's nice to expose us like that? To humiliate your family in public after everything we did for you? What did you do for me?" I asked, tone even. "Ignore me, ridicule me, deny me help, then rewrite history when I succeeded? You only got this far because of the education we gave you," he shouted. "Because of the values we instilled. That's an investment, boy, and you just spit on it in front of everyone. My mom appeared, pale, mascara running. Caleb, you didn't have to do it like this, she said, almost crying. You could have talked to us. You didn't have to put on a show. You are the show, I replied. You walked into my story after it was written and tried to edit it like you were the authors. Rachel stood by my side, arms crossed, staring firmly at them. My dad scoffed and turned away. You won't get away with this, he said. You're playing with reputations, the family name, our image. I laughed for the first time that night. Exactly, Dad. Image. Because you never cared about truth, only appearances. That night, I slept like I hadn't in months. For the first time, the story was told as it happened. But their reaction wasn't the end, it was the beginning. 2 days later, the insidious attacks started. Passive-aggressive social media posts about kids who forget where they came from. A cousin messaged, asking if I'd used emotional blackmail to get help. Another said my parents were devastated by the public exposure, that they'd only tried to support me in their own way. Rumors spread that I'd gotten initial capital from a silent parental donation, that the Bantech office was inherited, that my mom was a mentor in the early months. All lies. Cassie called me into the office, Nora followed. This is getting serious, Cassie said. A blog's replicating these distorted versions. An influencer called us a case of modern nepotism. If we don't act, this could hurt us. I knew it, even before my speech. That's when I decided. We're suing for defamation, unauthorized use of the company's image, and appropriation of our narrative. I want everything documented. Cassie and Nora nodded. Rachel was the first to speak. Are you ready for this? Yes, because it's not just about me. It's about everything we built together. Nobody's stealing that from us. We filed the lawsuit the next week. It wasn't just symbolic, we had evidence, screenshots of posts, call recordings, emails with false info sent to the media. The lawyers said it was a solid case but warned my parents would fight back. They did. They hired an aggressive law firm. Their first statement claimed everything was an emotional interpretation of family reality and the lawsuit was an attempt to silence concerned parents. The media loved it. Columns called it a generational crisis in business. Some painted me as ungrateful, others as a victim, but everyone was talking. No one controlled the narrative anymore. The defamation lawsuit became a slow-motion legal spectacle. My parents filed a counterclaim, saying that while they didn't provide financial support, they gave the ethical, disciplinary, and emotional foundations for my success. My lawyer laughed. Basically, they want royalties for being your parents, he said. I've never seen such a desperate argument. I didn't laugh. I knew their egos, they weren't just trying to win, they wanted to wear me down, demoralize me, force me to back off. Messages poured in from distant relatives, old schoolmates, childhood neighbors, saying they were disappointed I'd sue my parents. One wrote, if it weren't for them, you wouldn't even be born. The least you owe is gratitude. It was like logic was swallowed by sentimental fog. Nobody wanted facts, just the most digestible story, a family hurt by a rebellious son. We pushed forward. Over months, I attended hearings, gave depositions, relived every detail, from the day I asked for help to the fake posts. My parents played victims, cried, said they were excluded from their bloodline, that my success was their suffering. A fragment of my mom's testimony read, we never thought raising our son with principles would turn against us. He turned his back as soon as he became famous. Famous? The word made me sick. As if it was about vanity, as if I was a spoiled kid biting the hand that fed him. My dad went further, claiming the process harmed his health, that my attitude was toxic and public. He demanded a symbolic correction, a public acknowledgement that my career wouldn't exist without their family values. I refused. In the next hearing, I presented evidence, documents he'd signed offering himself as a company partner at meetings I never authorized. We had screenshots, emails, witnesses. That's when I understood, they didn't just want to steal my success, they wanted to buy a story they didn't build. The justice system saw it. The judge was direct, the evidence showed a deliberate attempt at image appropriation, defamation, and damage to Bantech's reputation. My parents were ordered to issue a formal retraction, remove all misleading content, and pay damages for moral and commercial harm. The ruling used the words fictitious reconstruction of a corporate narrative for self-aggrandizement. The decision made news. Local portals and columnists commented with astonishment. Many who'd taken their side deleted their tweets, but the damage was done. Some investors we were negotiating with pulled out, not from distrust, but to avoid public drama. Cassie was furious, Nora had a breakdown. I just felt empty, no victory, only exhaustion. A cold relief that filled nothing. Months after the process, I sat alone on the balcony of our new office, looking at the city I'd once crossed by subway with an old laptop and a dream no one wanted to hear. My parents never apologized, never tried to make amends. The last I heard, they sold part of the family business to cover legal fees. I moved on. Bantech grew. We hired more people. Rachel became our director of culture. Cassie and Nora our partners. I finally understood that sometimes breaking away is the greatest act of self-love. They wanted to steal my story, so I wrote my own. If this story moved you, if it made you think about fighting for your truth against those who try to rewrite it, I invite you to join this community. Like this video to help it reach others who need to hear it. Share it with someone facing their own battles. Leave a comment with your thoughts, experiences, or lessons you've learned. Subscribe to the channel. We have more true life stories to challenge, inspire, and remind you that no matter how tough it gets, you can write your own ending. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being here.